Hey everyone, it's Book of Katherine, and welcome to my Sanctuary City video. So if you have never been to my channel before, I am basically an insider. I have friends in what people would call high places, and I do consumer reporting, I've learned. So I am a researcher. I'm disabled, and so I have to sit at home all day. When I'm not talking to my friends, I wasn't always disabled. So anyway, so I finally, when I was getting healthier and everything like that, my friends were like, you really need to get out there and start sharing what you've learned through your research online and things like that. And they know I'm really passionate about consumer affairs and things like that. Of course, I don't say any of their names or anything along those lines, but I share what I am able to share, if that makes sense. And I've always had a heart for consumer affairs, and yeah, that's the long and the short of it if you are new to my channel. So I do have like insider movies where I get to share movies from Hollywood and all the way over to insider politics. So I get to share things that you might otherwise hear in politics. So it's just kind of the real deal on this channel. Everything me in between, even my cats. Like I don't know what happened with the setup today, but I was setting up and I was like, what is that? And he left now, but my cat will be possibly making appearance on that little bed right there. So I have a mirror there, and I was like, why are you there, Taz? So for those of you who are Taz cat fans, he may be making appearance there. He may not. I don't know. We will see. So it's his favorite little spot lately. So anyway, moving on. So I am nervous about this episode. I am more nervous about immigration. I don't know why. I assume it's because the left has me scared. So that's just the way it goes, even though I'm locked up in the house and, you know, but they somehow managed to, I don't have cable or anything like that, but I do post on Twitter. I do write on Twitter, and they managed to get through. So even that way. So, and I guess the truth of sanctuary cities is rather scary. And so that gets nerve-wracking in itself. So, but just if I seem nervous and I seem off, for those of you who are my fans already, and I seem a little off and nervous and things like that, it's just because the subject matter and the implications of it, if that makes sense. So I have shared some things on my feed. I post new research daily, not because I try to, but just because I have to. Like, I've gotten healthy enough to where the research that I find, I kind of like, oh, go share it. I used to write. I was an author, and now I can't write anymore. Like, I don't know if you guys know this or not. I don't think I've shared it before, but most of my tweets are done with one finger. Like, as I'm laying on my side, and I'm like, one finger. So those are my tweets. And this one finger is the biggest pain in the butt. So some people are like, can I share this information? Do you mind if I add it to my book? And I'm like, please just go share it. Like, I can't write a book. I'm typing with one finger. So that's why these videos are so helpful. So let's get on to the topic of sanctuary cities and what they really are. So I'm taping this on the very tail end of Memorial Day, and on the tail end of Memorial Day, not on the tail end of Memorial Day, but on Memorial Day, I only tweeted on one subject. I did kind of like a mini tweet. I did a subject, like a mini essay. I kind of do essays, if you will, on Twitter. And what I mentioned is that the left had turned the debate about socialism versus democracy into socialism versus capitalism. And I was saying that capitalism is a part of democracy that you can do, that you can't do in socialism. I was like, look, you know, capitalism is available in a democracy, but it's not a form of government, you know? Like, if you're a teacher, are you a capitalist? No. If you choose to be homeless, are you a capitalist? No. You get to wander. Like, that's the whole point. A democracy is free. You're free to do what you want. That's not the way it is in socialism. Like, you're not free to do whatever you want. And so the left cleverly changed the debate between socialism versus democracy, because that was definitively won in the 20th century, mostly by in every society. They killed millions of people and ruined the lives of a billion people. So they changed it to, oh, we'll just argue about capitalism. And no one caught it, right? So I was like, why don't we look on Memorial Day? Why don't we look at the argument that Ronald Reagan made against socialism? And he said, you know, freedom. He said when socialists were coming up in the early 80s, you know, Ronald Reagan used to be a Democrat. And then the Democrats, through the Alinsky's, he saw where they were going. They were becoming really socialist, and they were becoming what I'm about to talk to you about today. But there's a very good video on that, on how they changed. And I'll give you that link right here. Excellent, excellent video. And I'll be getting into that later. I might do a body language video on it. So anyway, but when that happened and they started turning into this kind of different kind of Democratic Party, and it started being taken over, he switched over to the Republican Party, and that's what he ended up running on. And that's part of the reason he won so much of the country. He won like 47 states, then he went up to 48 states the next time around, which is incredible. We used to be very united. But his argument when socialism started creeping in, his argument was about freedom. He was like, look, freedom is fragile. We have to fight for freedom. Freedom is earned. Every generation has to fight for freedom. And he was very much in defense of democracy. But the first time he fought socialism is when it tried to creep into our democracy, when he was in Hollywood, way early in the 20th century, when it was, you know, flourishing in Russia, and Hitler actually was a socialist, though they try not to talk about that, but you can look into the history. But that was his gig, was socialism, was Hitler's gig. And so he was a socialist party. So it started creeping into America as well. And Reagan also argued against it at that time. And Reagan said something very, very interesting. And this all has to do with sanctuary cities, I promise. It's very, very important and linked. So he said something very interesting. He said, all socialist societies, he said the people would never vote for it. Like, the people would never actually vote for it, but, you know, it gets put upon them. And he says, and the way it's always put upon them is through medicine. And that's exactly what was happening. Is there was a young gentleman, I think Nelson or something like that, and he was coming up and he was saying, oh, we should have socialized medicine, which is what Obamacare is. And so he was doing it way back in the early 20th century in America. And even though, you know, Reagan was an actor, he felt so strongly about socialism coming in, he could foresee what that meant. And he spoke up, and he actually got on the radio and he said, I'm sorry, I'm an actor. I know that I'm an actor. And I'll include the link below. It's actually a pretty amazing. Actually, I think there's actually a video that you can actually hear his voice. So I'll link that right here. It's his voice. And you can hear the radio broadcast, but his speech, I'll link the speech below and the radio broadcast so you can read and see along. But in it, he says a really amazing thing. He says, socialism always begins. The state imposes itself on its people through medicine. And here is the key point. He says it imposes through medicine first because it can sound like a humanitarian effort. It has the ring of like being humanitarian and for the people and so good for the people. Like, that is the lie that they tell, is that, you know, oh, it's humanitarian aid. It has, you know, an angel heart. And that is a defining factor of like Marxism and socialism and all of those things, is that when you talk about ideologies of the right, I'll be doing a whole series on that, so I won't get into it now. But when it comes to sanctuary cities, what it purports to be to us is what the left and all the media says to us is, hey, this is humanitarian. Like, we need all these cities for humanitarian. All these come, bring us our poor. We are a nation of immigrants. Bring us your poor. Bring us your hungry. Bring us your needy. Like, that's who we are. You know, we need places for them to land. You know, so we are a sanctuary. And they give it the name Sanctuary, and it plays on our heartstrings, and it literally has a humanitarian sound. And then they put out these quotes and figures that say, you know, like, okay, all the, you know, police chiefs, all the police chiefs, you know, overwhelmingly the police chiefs are in favor of sanctuary cities and sanctuary states. Police chiefs are. What they don't tell you is that police chiefs are actually appointed. They are political appointees by the mayors. So, like, if they go against the person who appointed them, they'll lose their job. So if you go to someone who isn't a political appointee, for example, the sheriffs who earn their way up and their job is secure no matter what they say, their job was earned by getting into the police force and earning their way up. Sheriffs across the country overwhelmingly are completely against sanctuary cities. And you may ask yourself, well, why is that? Like, why would sheriffs be completely against sanctuary cities? It's supposed to be about, you know, giving people sanctuary. You know, we're supposed to be, you know, feeding, you know, keeping them safe from big, bad, you know, Trump or whoever the mean people are that want to kick illegal aliens, the people who call them aliens, or people who call it who are just so mean and see them as less than human. That's what they're for. And there's a reason they use that argument. It's because it's the same people who are arguing for socialism. The left is the one making the case for socialism. That's the DNC. And remember that the DNC, and here is a very key thing for those of you who are new to my channel. If you look at the remember Bernie Sanders went out there and he did his entire presidential campaign on, you know, the 1%. The 1% is corrupt. You know, the 1% is corrupt. Actually, you know, I'll give you a clip. Just one moment. I'll play it right here for you. I'll give you a clip of something that they always say, like during every election in this election cycle right here, which is why I'm like doing this for you. So just one moment. Okay, so for those of you who I have to do it this way. I can't edit. Like, if you want videos from me, I can't edit. I can't do any of that, so I just play it for you. That's just the way it is. So, but anyway. So, let's watch what the DNC does. John Stossel, I love John Stossel, and he evaluates it, but there's stuff that I'm going to add that's going to blow your mind. Watch.
Did you know that these two men buy politicians?
Their money, their power, fuel the growing inequality.
The name Coke has become a four-letter word, taking a terrible toll on democracy.
A lot of people on the left hate the Koch brothers, and Jim Dean wants government to pass new laws to limit their influence. Dean's the brother of former presidential candidate Howard Dean and chair of a group called Democracy for America.
Oh my God.
So, you want everyone to have democracy, but not the Koch brothers.
I think the power should be in the hands of the American people, and I think it should be a level playing field. We should get money out of politics. I think spending $1 billion on any side of the aisle is basically crowding out the voice of the American people.
What if the Koch's done that makes you mad?
Well, I mean, they have their politics, which I happen to disagree with, and they have certainly influenced the political process when it comes to environmental regulations and regulations that affect the businesses that they're in, which is primarily oil and gas and a few other things. But you could say this about a lot of other folks. You know, the Koch brothers, of course,
but the focus on the left, with the mob, is against the Kochs. There have been death threats. They get lots of death threats.
Well,
there's samples that I say we kill the Koch brothers and the entire family line. Let's drag them out. Let the hangman do the deed. If I had a chance to murder a Koch brother in cold blood, I would surely take it. I mean, people jump out of bushes with cameras. They hound them.
Yeah, well, we don't exactly advocate for violence. So I just want to
Right.
be clear about that.
They just run
But
Antifa.
the Koch brothers are
So-
the poster boy for everything that is wrong in politics.
Did you hear that? But the Koch brothers are the poster boy for everything that is wrong in politics today. Okay. So now that you've seen that, now notice who he was on a chair with. Like, notice who that was. Massachusetts. He's a Democrat. In Massachusetts, remember how I said you have to get rid of her? She sits on the slush fund, the Credit Financial Protection Bureau. That slush fund, that's why they want to get money out of politics, because they have a slush fund they've got the money, and they want that money coming through it. If you look at that Credit Financial Protection Bureau, ooh. Okay, that's going to have to be another video. So, but I will show you, like, no one's ever seen a budget for it. No one's ever seen, like, it is just such a slush. You have to see my research. Find my research. It's in there. So, okay. So they say the Koch brothers are the poster boy for everything that's wrong with politics. Then Bernie Sanders was like, down with the 1%. They're everything that's wrong. And I know you guys are like, yep, the Koch brothers. Yep, the Koch brothers. They're what's wrong with politics. They're what's wrong. Except that, what's this? Okay. Do you read this list? This is the Forbes top 10 U.S. billionaires. Do you see that? Forbes top 10 U.S. billionaires. Number 1 is Bill Gates. He's a liberal. Half his money goes liberal. DNC. Number 2, who is that? Amazon, Jeff Bezos. The only thing he cares about more than sales is votes. If you look down this list, then it's Warren Buffett, liberal. Then it's Mark Zuckerberg, liberal. Are you getting the drift here? The only 2 on this entire list that are, they're not even conservative. They're like in the middle. They're like some kind of libertarian thing. If you look at their policies worldwide, they're on the fence. They're not even conservative. So there's just these 2 guys with one company, and all the rest are liberal, and they're at the bottom of the list. And when the DNC is in power, they grow the least. The others boom. They grew by 1 billion or whatever, and the others grew by 15 or 20 billion. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, and yet Bernie Sanders ran on the 1%, should pay their fair share. Oh, did I tell you, like, they didn't close loophole? They had Congress, they had all 3 houses and everything, and they didn't close they created the tax loophole for the rich. So they paid less than all Americans. We paid more than them. Then while they were raising taxes on all of us, they kept the loophole for the rich. So you're getting a pattern here. What does it have to do with sanctuary state? Just because they say something doesn't necessarily mean that's what it means. Oh, there's Kathy Beer. Hello. Oh, he's doing something private. Okay. So, sorry, Taz. I didn't know that. All right. So anyway, just because they say one thing doesn't mean that's actually what they're doing. That's the lesson. Okay? So, you know, Elizabeth Warren's like, this is the biggest problem. Like, she's really good about putting people out in front and saying one thing. They say the Koch brothers are the big problem. In the top 20, you're like, maybe that's just the top 10. Maybe the rest. No. In the top 20 families of Forbes' richest, 75% are Democrat. And the majority of richest on the Forbes 400, the majority are Democrats. The majority are liberal. I'm sorry, did they not tell you that? And how did they get so rich? How did their money just burst open? Like, how is it when Obamacare went through, that all other industries tanked, but the healthcare industry exploded. Like, their stocks went through the roof. My point in all this is that the sanctuary city thing, it might not just be like a give me your tired, give me your poor, give me your hungry. It might not be as sweet as it sounds and as innocent as it sounds. So what is a sanctuary city? What is a sanctuary state? And did it start with Donald Trump? Well, no. They actually began like 2004. States started doing that. Like, I'll read you when they began. So yeah, back in 96, and I don't know if it was before this that it was always, I think it always worked this way. I don't know if they just had to make it law or what the heck was going on. I don't know the full history of that. But in 1996, it became formal law that when you, well, I guess I have to, basically, sanctuary cities like go back as far as 2004. Like, that's way, sorry. He's elected 16. That's 12 years before. I think if I'm stink at math, I think I'm doing it right. Others were like 2010, 2011. But a lot of them have not even been passing laws. They've just been ignoring it. Like, they've just been ignoring the law. Which, let me clarify what that is. So, what is it? So, I just wanted to clarify that this is not a new problem. This is not a new problem at all. This is a thing that didn't suddenly begin with Donald Trump. Okay? Donald Trump did not arrive and suddenly sanctuary cities began. What happened was, in 1996, reform was passed, like an immigration reform was passed, and some things were finalized about immigration law was finalized. Like, made into law. And what happened is that a lot of cities were just, like, informally ignoring it. And what happened is that when Donald Trump came along, a lot of cities were like, well, we're just going to formally ignore it. We're going to do it and get in the media and da-da-da-da. You know, and just proclaim it, you know, and say it, you know, to support the left and support the DNC. But they were already, you know, not doing it. So it was not a new problem. The influx, the rate at which people are coming in, that could be new. All right, so what is it? Like, what are sanctuary city laws? Here's the deal. They have nothing to do with immigrants who didn't wait in line, who, like, decided to go around the line and come and live in a house and live there, and then that's it. Sanctuary city laws have nothing to do with that. So, I'm like, where do I begin? So let's start with the definition of who sanctuary city laws are for. What type of immigrant? And this is I should say this because this is something that the press confuses all the time. You will constantly see them say, cities or Trump or what it turns away immigrants, anti-immigrant law, anti-immigrant this, anti-immigrant that, pro-immigrant, pro-immigrant. Okay. There are two kinds of immigrants. Two kinds. There are the immigrants who naturalize, they come in and they get online, like they apply to become a citizen, they get online and they wait to become a citizen. Like, they actually, when they decide to come to the country, they say, I want to be in America. I want to live in America. They look over at America and they say, I want to live there. I don't want to live here. I want to live there. And they go on over and they say, okay, can I apply to live here? And America says, okay, you can come on a visa. All right, so we'll extend you a visa, or like, let us check out your background, or, you know, and all these different things. And if you haven't seen my immigration video, I really think you should, because what people don't understand about our current immigration laws is that a certain senator did a immigration law, and it's the immigration law we have now. We do not have a diverse immigration system. The immigration system we have now only lets in certain types of countries, a very narrow set of countries. So people seem to think that the whole world can get into America, and that is simply not the case. I have a lot of friends in India, amazing, incredible people in India. There are people in Canada who want to get in. There are people in Great Britain. There are people all over the world. Russia, they want to get in, and they're not able to get in. Like, they have to pay extraordinary fees. The work visas are impossible. And so what happens is the companies are like, we would much rather just pay to have you stay over there. You know, and the thing is that, you know, someone asked a great question at a Q&A recently. They're like, why should we let anyone in? Like, we're a nation here. Why should we let anyone in? And I was like, because the higher level jobs, you know, you kids don't want to do them. Like, I did the Do What You Are book, and then when you got to the end of it, you found the careers you wanted, you were just like, well, actually, I don't feel like working. Like, I don't actually want to take the job. Not all cultures are like that. Like, there's a reason that you're like that. Like, that, unfortunately, is the way the internet raised. They raised you to be like that. Like, your parents, like, failed you in that regard. But, I mean, this whole loudspeaker upon you did that on purpose. Like, you are, in a way, you are a victim, in a way that of the culture they created in order to do that to you. Like, that's why they make porn 24 hours accessible. You know, that's why they make, you know, alcohol so readily accessible, like in all these things. Like, they really push it. They say alcohol is good to drink while you're pregnant, which is not true. Fetal alcohol syndrome, you can't find information about it anymore. Doctors aren't even willing to say that fetal alcohol syndrome exists. They won't even mention the term when you ask about it. You know, and when you ask if it's safe to drink when you're pregnant, like, they won't even say that term to you at all, even if you're at the best, you know, anywhere. Best hospital anywhere. So it is a really different culture, right? But other cultures are not. Other cultures don't have that kind of thing going on. They don't have the wealth to have all these phones and computers blaring at them 24/7. And so they have a different kind of system, and they have a different kind of work ethic. And so they've applied for higher levels of education. They've had a different kind of work ethic. And so they may be, there are companies in America. I know my husband, when he went to apply for jobs, I remember that, like, everywhere he went when we wanted to move to the East Coast, every single company was like, you're the only one. Like, you're the only one that has this resume. Like, you're the only one. Like, you're the only one, because, you know, the math that he does is so freaking difficult, and, like, students just don't take that hard of math anymore. That's why we need immigrants, like, from other countries to come in and take the jobs that our young people don't want. We don't get veterinarians anymore. Kids don't want to be veterinarians. Like, they're just, if you open up the newspaper, I dare you to open up the newspaper and see how many jobs are available. You know, all the trade school jobs, like, trade schools are shutting down everywhere because no one's applying for them. Like, the kids here, a lot of them they'd rather be on vacation 24. It makes them miserable. They need to learn that work, like, they've done millions of studies. What you need to do in order to be happy is they've done a million studies, and man needs to work, eat, and sleep. That's what a man needs, or else he withers up and dies. But, you know, kids don't know that today yet. Like, they have no idea. They think they just need to play video games. You know, it gets them on that, and they don't know how to get off. It's an addictive cycle. Like, that's why people, you know, they've been found, you know, they can live their entire life on a video game, and they are made for that. Like, they are made to intend to take your life so that your life is not productive, and doesn't enrich this country, so that our wealth goes elsewhere. It's very, very, targeted towards us. So when you say, like, why should we take anyone from elsewhere? Because they're willing to take the jobs you're not willing to do. That's why. However, the immigration system they put into place blocks all those people. Like, literally blocks them all. And only takes from very, 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 very narrow group of countries. And I'm like, we should have an immigration system that takes from all countries. And instead, it's like these countries and in at incredible rates. And then, it used to be like when you come in, and it's just one person, and you came in and that's it. Like, that's how Ellis Island happened when they say we're a nation of immigrants. Yeah, all those immigrants came in one at a time. When they fled Europe from the Holocaust, they came in one at a time. No one got to take their family. No one got to say, well, we're dying in the Holocaust, we get to take everyone in our family, our entire tribe. That's not the way it worked. And that would have been incredibly human, wouldn't have? But, it ended up producing, 4 decades of incredible wealth for everyone because they took them in one by one. And, made sure that they quarantined people who weren't healthy, made sure they got healthy, things like that, turned away people who weren't. It protected the nation and made the nation strong, made them wealthy, and you wouldn't have your wealth today if they hadn't. You wouldn't have your iPhone. You wouldn't have your 3 TVs. All of that is predicated on the immigration system that came before. All of it. All the homes you have, the tract housing, it's all based on that immigration system that came before. So what's happening now is a very, very different immigration system that's predicated on something very different. But sanctuary cities isn't about that. Sanctuary cities is about taking people who don't come through the immigration system at all. It's about taking people who decide to skip the immigration system, but not just skip the immigration system. It's about taking people who decide to skip the immigration system and then break the law again. Because when you skip the immigration system, it's like sneaking over the wall. You guys know how it works. But, the way I think of it is like, all right, you don't want to be a citizen of this country. Like, that's what do you want to be a citizen of this country? Apply for citizenship. And if you don't want to be a citizen, like, the people who come and skip the line, they don't want to be a citizen. Like, that's what they're doing when they go around about and stuff like that. Like, because what happens is when you get in line, you get visas and stuff. You still get in, but you're in line. And you get identified, and the government knows where you are. When you skip the line, the whole point is to stay under the radar and not be known. And that should tell you something about what sanctuary cities are about. Now, if you notice, 1996 happened, and that's when they were like, oh, these are the immigration laws. But you guys know what happened in 1996, like New American Century. It was the Clintons. And then all of a sudden, everyone decides not to follow them. So what happens? So what they say is, well, if someone comes in and they decide to skip the line and they're caught, let's say they're caught doing something illegal, then they need to be deported, which was the case before. Like, if you catch someone, let's say, someone who skipped the line shoots somebody. Well, they're not a citizen of this country. They're a citizen of another country. So we shouldn't foot the bill. They're a citizen of another country. They didn't get in line here. They haven't been, footing the bill here. They haven't been paying into our system. And people are like, oh, they've been paying to... No. Not even close. Not even close. Like, buying food and everything like that, but honestly, if they're already skipping the line, there's other ways they skip the line. Like, they're not going to pay, like, paying sales tax is not going to pay for their jail cell. Like, jail cells over a number of years can be up to $1 million. Like, so if they shoot somebody and then they get caught and they go to jail and then they come up as an illegal alien, like they skip the line. I just think if they're not a dual citizen, like if they're not a citizen of this country and another country, they're only a citizen of another country, then they get sent back to that other country. And that other country can deal with them. They shot somebody. All right, you go back to that country. You know, you're not ours. You didn't pay into our system. You don't go into our jail system. The other country can handle it. Thank you for playing. You weren't supposed to be here anyway. You shot somebody. You go elsewhere. Sanctuary cities, and that's what people don't understand. It sounds so pretty, but sanctuary cities decide to not tell federal authorities, because they're the ones who actually carry. It's not because every state, like, they catch the criminals, right? But they're not going to transport them to the border. It's the federal authorities who do the transporting. And so normally they have to call the federal authorities and be like, can you transport them? It's not our job, right? Well, what they started doing is being like, well, we're not going to call for a transport. Like, we're not even going to tell you that we caught someone who's here illegally. Well, what happens is, so that becomes a sanctuary city. Well, what that means is it's a sanctuary literally for criminals. Like, sanctuary is not for women, children, and the men and people who come here for other countries. Like, that's asylum or whatever. Sanctuary cities are sanctuaries for criminals. Like, who break the law again. Say, literally, if you break the law, if you violate our laws, we will not deport you. We will keep you here in America. But there are severe consequences to that. Because they're not a citizen here, they don't have the rights of a citizen here. The rights of a citizen here have, like, a right to a fair trial and all of these things, and you need to be booked, and you need to be this, and da. Well, they don't have any of those rights. So what happens is that when they go and they, like, well, they're like, let's say they're in a sanctuary city, right? Let's say they're in California, a sanctuary state. All right. So someone is caught for raping a young woman. All right. They go into Los Angeles County and they go to the lockup and they book them and they say, okay, now you're released on bail and you need to be back at the judge by 3 p.m., in 3 weeks. Does that criminal show up again in 3 weeks? Like, no. Like, that's the point. They don't. Why? Because they're not in the system. They don't have a driver's license. They don't have any identification. So it's literally catch and release. They break the law, you catch them, and then they decide to be a sanctuary city, which means release them. And they are literally doing that for criminals to the point. And also, the other thing is, they're now, let's say they get them and they don't get bail. It's such a heinous crime, they don't get bail. And they're held in the jail. Normally, now, like ICE, which is the Federal Transport System for Illegal Immigration or whatever, they're like, oh, we know now. We know that you are here illegally. So what they do is, like, they go to the jail and they're like, we want to deport him. Well, because it's a sanctuary city, they're like, no, Like, your sanctuary cities will not give up the illegal alien. And you will hear, like, listen to what Hartford, Connecticut's mayor says about that. Okay, so there is a mayor in California that stood up to the sanctuary city law. Like, for example, Maine. I'll give you an example. Like, Maine in 2004, Maine actually made it illegal for citizens to report illegal immigrants to the federal government. So if illegal immigrants moved across your street, you were not allowed to call the authorities and say they moved across my street. Like non-citizens, like if they move into your house, they move into your rental, which is a big problem. Like in California, that was such a big problem because you can't get like, oh my gosh, it was such a big problem. You weren't allowed to call the authorities. You were like, you can't call the authorities on them. And California passed a big thing that was like employers, like California passed a law that said that if federal officials come to your door to businesses and say, we need to check for illegal immigrant, like we need to check to see if anyone's here illegally. California made it illegal. They said, if you allow them onto your property, if you let the federal agents onto your property, we'll put you in jail for following the law. Like that is what's going on. Like, this is about criminals. This is not about, like, moms and their kids. This is completely about, you know, the jail system and whether or not when a criminal gets caught for a crime, whether or not we house them and pay for them or whether or not they're sent back to their country because they violated our citizens here. Like, that, for example, the girl who was shot in San Francisco, California, the reason there was such an uproar was because he was already arrested 5 times for violent offenses. Do you know why that was such a big deal? 5 times for violent offenses? Because in California, there's a 3 strikes law. If you are a regular citizen, if you are a citizen of the United States in California, and you commit a crime, violent crime, the 3rd strike and you're out. You're in jail for life. But if you're not a citizen, if you cut the line and you cross the border illegally, jump the line, you'll never get the 3 strikes law. You can break the law as much as you want and they physically let you out the back door. If ICE comes, like what happens at the end of their jail sentence, and they'll admit it too, you'll find the tape. Jails, what they will do in California and the other sanctuary cities, when the federal agents come to pick them up at the end of the jail sentence, because now the jails are saying, well, we won't hand them over. We want to house them for the entirety of the jail sentence, which means you, the taxpayer, are paying for someone that never paid into the tax system. Because when they're working for someone, they're being paid underneath the table, which means it's never into the tax system. In California, it's all underneath the table because they'll get in trouble. The employer will get in trouble. They can't enter. There's no social security. Remember, when you fill out a W-2 form, you fill out their social security number. And they don't have one to fill out. But they steal them. And that's not a racist thing for me to say. There's video of it. And I'll link it right here. In LA, they just sit on the street corners of LA and sell credit cards and social security cards. And no one stops them. Because LA is so corrupt. It is so Democrat driven. It is corrupt. I don't know how many times I can say that, like the Linsky brothers, they're mafia. Linsky worked with the Capone brothers and taught them tips. That is who the Democrats are run by. Like, that is their playbook. And it is showing. So I'll tell you, like, this is what Hartford, Connecticut, this is what your mayor who wants to run for governor says about it. This is what he says. So what happened is that there's a mayor who actually stood up to the California law for sanctuary cities. All of the people came to his town hall and said, stop it, because they were dreaming. What happened is, this is the big thing. Finally, federal funding got shut off. They're like, you are not obeying the law. Like, we made an agreement. Like, it was voted on by Congress. Congress passed a law. The law was passed. These are the laws that govern our country, and you guys are breaking the law. And so you lose federal funding. The federal funding got cut off, And they still are doing sanctuary cities. They are still breaking the law and giving them extra benefits and spending extra money. Even in LA, if you watch those tapes that I just linked up, they diverted funds, taxpayer funds, into a legal fund so that if you got caught by ICE, you got paid with taxpayer funds. Like you, the taxpayer in sanctuary cities, you are funding their legal fund for non-citizens. Do you have a legal fund for your lawyer bills? Did you know that your house payment, your taxes, your land, it's not just going to school. It's not just going to schools anymore. It is funding the lawyers for immigrants who decided to skip the line to fight being deported when we already let in like 1 million immigrants a year. They just wanted to skip the line. And it's not just that. It's that it's protecting the ones who break the law even more. It's protecting the ones who are killing people on the streets, shooting them. And I want you to really think about that. When you go to a sanctuary state and you find out that you can shoot somebody dead and they'll grab you, but then they'll release you, you know you can just skip bail and it won't mean anything, and you can just go to the next sanctuary city and they don't put you in the system. Like, that's part of the agreement of a sanctuary state, is they don't put you in the system. Like, they agree not to take your name. They agree not to take... Are you getting this? Like, why wouldn't they do that? And I'll get into this. So, anyway, the mayor that decided to fight for his citizens and listen to what the citizens who voted for him said, he decided to not follow through the sanctuary state law. And so here's what he says to the mayor of Hartford, Connecticut, who is doing the sanctuary state law.
To the mayor of Hartford? Well, I think there's two parts of it. I don't know.
This is the guy from Anaheim.
The mayor of Hartford, it's an honor to meet you. But, you and I are both U.S. Navy veterans, and we both swore an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States. We took that same oath when we came to be the mayor and city council member. And, the sanctuary law directly conflicts, at least within California, conflicts with our obligation. And, from being on the council, I don't see how you can compel yourself to actually follow the law.
Go ahead. Look, I think you're misreading the Constitution. The Constitution does not allow the federal government to commandeer local law enforcement to do their job. There's only one mayor between us that is consciously violating a law, and that's your ordinance violating California state.
Okay, so do you hear that? He said there's no thing that commandeers local government to do their job. There's no commandeering. Like, they're transporting to the border. Like, they catch the criminal, they transport them to border. They're not asking local law enforcement to do anything. They're showing up at the jail to pick the guy up. And they are actually opening the door and letting them out the back because they're a sanctuary state. They're actually aiding and abetting the criminals. Perfect example, Oakland. When ICE was coming, there were 800 criminals, criminal records. I posted it on Twitter. The 3 rap sheets. Like, just the rap sheets of only 3 of the criminals, of those 800 criminals, right? And the Oakland mayor, like, ICE was coming to go get those 800 criminals and deport them. That didn't require local law enforcement. They weren't commandeering any local law enforcement. And she tweeted out, they're coming at this such and such a time. Like, get out. And they ran. And it put ICE in danger. Like, it put their ICE agents in terrible danger because they were all armed and ready for them when they arrived on the scene. in Oakland of all places, which is already extremely dangerous, all of these criminals, like, they're dangerous criminals. And that's what I want to get to next. So I'm just saying, like, sanctuary cities are not, they're not what they sound like. They're not for the tired and hungry and poor. They are laws meant to make sure that the criminals within the non-citizen community never ever get deported. I'll say that again. Sanctuary cities are designed to make sure the non-citizen criminals in the city are not deported. I'll say it again. Sanctuary city laws are designed in every single way, top to bottom, to make sure that the criminals, not the crime of cutting the line, the crimes of manslaughter, the crimes of child rape, the crimes of theft, the crimes of grand theft auto. Like, I'll show you the rap sheet of just 3 of the criminals. ICE, months later, it's like 3 months later, finally caught just 3 of the 800 criminals. Finally. That's taxpayer dollars wasted. I'll show you the rap sheets of just 3 of them. It's just not wife and kids around. It's 3. Alrighty, so that is robbery. That between 3 of them, there is robbery, gun crimes, spouse. This is important. I'm going somewhere with this. The types of crimes are really important here. Okay, so robbery, gun crimes, spouse battery, DUI, drug possession, hit and run, narcotics equipment possession, and false imprisonment. False imprisonment is sending somebody else to jail instead of themselves, I'm pretty sure. So that is amongst 3 of them, there is robbery, gun crimes. So these are numerous charges: robbery, guns crimes, spouse battery, DUI, drug possession, hit and run, narcotic equipment possession, false imprisonment. Now, if you have seen the Honduras, remember he had a big caravan coming up from Honduras? Honduras is the femicide capital of the world. Femicide is female homicide. They just kill women just like, it's like bang a minute. It's awful. It's awful. And Google has started wiping that off. There's an excellent documentary by Stacey Dooley, and they've wiped everything of hers like offline. She made amazing documentaries all over the world. And then suddenly all of her South American documentaries just started disappearing. It was very, very interesting. So, and then, everything started, and then they started doing like cover-up pieces. So it's very, very interesting to me. But they're saying like, well, what's wrong with them coming up for, and it's, those cultures are different. Like, they have to want to assimilate and believe in the things that we believe in. It is, for example, here's another thing they showed in Honduras. Like, the culture is so different. Not only are they just, like, they pay each other $50 to take women out. Like and they don't think women should look at each other. Like, they don't think women should look at another man. Like, if a guy asks a girl to dance and she says yes, like, he's like, she's not allowed to want that. And so he takes her out. Like, other cultures, there's a reason why when you watch fails are not, they don't show you fails from the rest of the world. Like, the furthest you get is Russia, and that's rare. But they're not showing you fails from, like, Egypt, or South Africa, or Zimbabwe, or China, or India. Why is that? because you just might find out how good you have it here. We're a first world country. There's second world and third world. Third world countries don't have running water. They don't have clean water. You might actually decide it might be good to take a shower. You might find out that not everyone has running water or pipes. You know, like they live in dirt straw huts. So anyway, what you need to keep in mind with all those, I'm going to read those again because this is very key. This is very key and important. So drug possession, hit and run, narcotic equipment possession, false imprisonment. Like, picture this in your head. What kind of person is this that has this kind of thing? Robbery, gun crime, spouse battery, DUI. Okay? These three people had all of these crimes. Aren't those crimes all related? And then these are the people being let out the back door or given prison sentences or given, and they are given extra rights because they're not citizens here. And they choose not to be citizens here. They choose not to get in line. You could get a visa. You know, we have a generous immigrant policy. Why do they choose to be under the radar? Like, okay, there's two things going on. Okay, first of all, did you know that with our disability benefits, like you can make more than $4,000 a month if you bring sick kids in? Like your kid, our Social Security disability, the Democrats passed something. They passed something where the sicker your kid is, the more you make on them. When you keep hearing about caravans coming up and you see a white guy at the front leading them, and you hear all those kids, and then you hear like kids get to the border. Well, the kids are going to get like, you know, they get, if you have a kid, you get more benefits. The more kids you have, the more they raise your benefits. And the sicker the kid is. And so it attracts kids that like, you know, they're quadriplegic. Then you get even more. You can get like $4,000 for one kid a month. Now, then those are the kind of guys that are with it, with spousal abuse and everything. Like, are you starting to think, like, think about the mafia of the world. Like, the Russian mafia runs like 40%, what is it, 40 or 60% of the Russian economy? No, 40% of the world's economy. If we have a social security system that you cannot get turned down for benefits, like I just did something, I was applying for a job, I was thinking about applying for a job, and it was like to see, it was not applying for a job, but I was applying for a program to learn how to like spot lies, because I was like, wow, I do this really naturally. And he was like, here, just try this exercise. And he gave me the exercise, and he's like, this girl filled it out this way. And I just was like, and he's like, what can you tell about her just from reading the answer? And I read the answer, and I was just like, well, I can tell this, this, and this, and I can tell that it's a scam, and there's probably an entire criminal ring going on. And then it turned out like I had done like the whole thing, and then turned out I hadn't read like a page that went with it. And it turned out that like it was actually a real story, and like it wasn't like and it was a whole, and I was like, oh, like I had no, and I was like, oh my God. But then I kind of got mad, like, and I didn't know, I really read it wrong, and I thought the person got, oh, this whole thing. And then I was just like, and that opened my eyes, because I was just like, oh, that makes sense. And what was funny is they were saying, in their analysis, the one that does it for a living, they were like, it sounds like a person who fills out these forms as part of their daily life. And that's why people are like, we cannot have open borders and a welfare state at the same time. That's what they mean by that. You can't get turned down for disability. That's why your taxes are less than your Social Security, because it's not going towards retirement anymore. It's now going towards these disability claims where kids can say, oh, I have attention deficit disorder, so they don't have to work. They just get paid benefits, and they can go live a vacation lifestyle, and that's why the universities have such huge, huge disabilities departments. Because if they have huge disabilities departments, they can get all the kids on disabilities and the kids get it in. But the mafias of the world, they've learned that they can get in, so they bring in these caravans and everything like that. They bring these guys in, and that is called modern day slavery. That it is statistically known. Two things are known. Number one, slavery is at the highest it's ever been in world history. Fact. Do you think when they come here sweating and everything and being dragged across the border, and then they come here and then they're going to get a fat $6,000 check, you think their people that brought them here aren't going to take a portion of that? You think they're not going to be taken off the top? That's the slave trade. That's why there is a master at the front going pull, 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 driving a caravan through, and the women and children are getting hurt on the way up. Are you kidding? Fact number 2. When did our opioid, when did the Sacklers, like, if you don't believe me, watch this. Watch this. I watch this. Do you know who the Sacklers are? The Sackler family? They created that little itty bitty drug that acts like heroin. That's chemically exactly the same. You know, Oxy. $1996. The same year as sanctuary cities began. Pain clinics didn't exist before 1996. Before there were pain clinics, we got procedures to fix the pain. I finally figured out a procedure. Now I'm getting treated with procedures. And look, I'm sitting up. And my last doctor's appointment, my doctor thinks I'll be able to dance again at a pro level again. Like, not in a wheelchair, a champion dancer again. Whereas the other 30 doctors before that, I just got worse and worse and worse, and they just kept giving me meds. Every time I went into doctor, they're like, what other medicine can I give you? And all the pain meds, more and more pain meds, more and more pain meds. You know what's so funny? Never procedures. They're like, oh, you wouldn't want to put something in your body, would you? And I remember right around that time, they started saying, oh, procedures hurt, you know, oh, they do more damage than good. And I was like, what? But that's when that little drug Oxy came out, 1996. And that's when sanctuary cities were invented. Let me read you how they put it. Let me read you how they put it. For sanctuary cities. The consequences of sanctuary policies. Military strategists understand the importance of denying an enemy geographic sanctuaries. Well, let me put it this way. I didn't tell you what's happening. You don't know what's happening. You got in a gist, right? That it's for criminals, right? Why do public officials adopt sanctuary policies? Well, they mention lobby groups. La Raza wants to turn California, wants to reclaim California for Mexico. But you know who funds La Raza? They're like the Antifa for Mexico. Do you know who funds them? Just guess. Same guy who funds marijuana. Isn't it interesting that Florida just legalized marijuana after Soros dumped a couple billion into Florida? You need to learn the word bribery. Go watch that California town hall. Actually watch all the California town halls, and you'll hear the citizens talking about briberies all over the state. Because isn't it interesting that the cities have trash piling up, and all the citizens are complaining, and all the DNC officials are just stone-faced? Why do public officials pass sanctuary laws? Because the voters don't vote for them. You didn't vote for them. Like Maine, when Maine did it, executive order said you can't call the feds. So if you see an illegal alien dealing drugs on your corner, you can't call the feds and get him out. There are a variety of reasons. Some politicians attempt to please politically powerful illegal immigration support groups such as National Council of La Raza, Mexican American Legal Defense and Education Fund, also Soros, League of United Latin American Citizens. Just all people really need to look him up. Let me just read you. Let's get to the real nitty-gritty, shall we? When did America's drug problem start, people? When did it start? When did our opioid crisis begin? When did Oxycontin get on the market? Let's go ahead. Let me attach to you what Oxycontin really is. Let me attach the best documentary I've ever seen on Oxycontin. It's not long. It's like 45 minutes, whatever, right here. All right? Oxycontin wears off the potency. You take it, and a week later, you got to take twice as much to get the same effect. And a week later, you got to take 3 times as much to get the same effect. And 3 weeks later, you got to take 4. That's Oxy for you, created by the Sacklers. Sound like a con to you? Now, America's drug crisis kept getting worse and worse and worse, and we just didn't seem to be able to do anything about it. All the while, sanctuary cities are going on. That protect criminals. With more rights. Criminals, drug possession, gun possession, lets them out the back door. Feds can't pick them up. You tell me, how are we ever supposed to deport a cartel member? Under these laws, how do you deport the cartel? How do you deport ISIS? How do you deport the triads? Because these laws are not designed to protect the non-citizens who are sitting in their home. ICE can walk up to their door and pick them up. No, these laws are designed to protect the criminals who break the law. The police are not allowed to turn them over. as of 1996, when Oxy was created, right before the big addiction boom. We just can't seem to fight it. During the Clinton era, have you seen Clinton Cash? Where everything was for sale, even the White House. Teacups, forks, everything. The consequences of sanctuary policies. Military strategists understand the importance of denying an enemy geographic sanctuaries. Sanctuaries allow an enemy time to safely operate and build up defensive and offensive capabilities and hold and take ground. That's not illegal aliens that are the enemies. That's illegal drug traffickers, sex traffickers. You're wondering why our sex trafficking is so high? Why your daughters are disappearing off the streets? To the point where Dr. Phil had to do a series called Daughters Gone? But if we catch them, can't deport them. Can't even hold them on bail. They can just run. No 3 strikes for them. They say it's like a little game now. Like the bondsmen get a lot of money. Like the police like to just keep arresting them and the thing. Like the police are just fully corrupt, like in LA now. Because the police get a payoff from the bondsmen. So they just keep arresting the same criminals over and over because they keep getting released on bond. Because the jail can't hold them. Because they're not citizens. Sanctuaries allow an enemy time to safely operate and build up defensive and offensive capabilities and hold and take ground. Sanctuaries for illegal aliens likewise provide an important strategic advantage over law enforcement and their ability to perform their law enforcement duties. It is not the war on drugs anymore. It is the war with drugs. You can't even find a complete list. Every town's bought. They don't even tell you. They don't have to tell you. Oh, no, 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 no. You know how you know it's for criminals? Because when you look up sanctuary cities, you know what Google brings up first? Even on DuckDuckGo, they bring up lawyers' offices because they want to get their money. Because they're like, if you're looking up sanctuary cities, it means you're in trouble with the law. Do you know how many hit and runs they do? Do you want to know why that is? Why so many hit and runs are happening with non-citizens? That's because, like in Honduras, they have drive-through bars there. You drive through, just like you do at McDonald's, and you order up a margarita, and you drive drunk. That's what you do. That's the culture. And they don't assimilate to us. Why would they? They don't have to obey the law. I mean, after all, our prisons are private. They get more money. We even have a federal, thank you DNC for this. Thank you so much DNC for this. We even have a federal program that gives our jails extra money if they house illegal immigrants in them. So it's an incentive to hold on to them instead of deport them. So we, the taxpayer, you want to know why your taxes are actually $10,000 a year? Like if you add up all your taxes, they've done the studies. If you look at everything, all your phone bills, all the little hidden fees, all the little things, oh, they've spread it out in all little ways, but you, the taxpayer, are paying 10 grand a year per person for them to pay for DNC bribes, for the cartel. You want to know why you can't go into Mexico anymore? Why it's gotten so bad? You used to be able to go into Mexico and visit Tijuana, go across the border. I lived in California. You used to be able to go over the border. You can't do that anymore. Heck no, you can't do that anymore. God, you don't want to know what they would do to people in order to import the drugs. Like, it is just like, Sicario ain't nothing to what's happened. Sicario ain't nothing what's happened. But they made you think it was happening out there. Oh, no, baby. Oh, no. And why isn't the press telling you that it's happening right here? Why isn't the press telling you that? Oh, let me think. Maybe it's those 10 billionaires at the top of the little food chain. And maybe they make more off of you addicted. You remember the Matrix, right? Do you think they make more off of you when you're plugged into that little hive than if you're off free? Frickin' we have a new president, one that they didn't want. And the average American household went up 3%. They're losing their frickin' minds. Because they're little misers. They're like little frickin' Scrooge. They can't believe they lost 3% of their little bottom line. And that brings me to my final point. You want to know what to do about sanctuary cities? That guy. You have to stop voting for the wolf in sheep's clothing. Connecticut is the pipeline. Did you know that, Hartford? You don't think like, why don't you think he's so good looking? Oh yeah. Doesn't he look kind of like, a Kennedy? Doesn't he look so good? He wants to run for governor. Look at him. Oh yeah. Look at him. Oh. And do you really want to vote for this guy? This other mayor right here? Is that who you want to vote for? Who stood up for the people? No, you guys always want to vote for this guy. You want to vote for the Democrat, the DNC, who's so good looking. Well, let's go ahead and see what this good looking guy. You want to vote for them for mayor? You want to vote for them for governor? You just want the shiny little slick. That's who you want to vote for. Why don't we listen? Why don't we listen to what the slick guy has to say? I'm going to rewind a bit. All right, let's listen to what he has to say, shall we?
California, Troy Edgar is saying no mas. The mayor says if the governor won't protect the citizens, I will.
That's the Anaheim guy.
Now. Along with the mayor of Hartford, Connecticut, Luke Bronin, Hartford is a sanctuary city.
Oh, look at that smile. Makes you think of your kid, doesn't it?
Which is basically a sanctuary state.
Does your kid lie to you?
I'm going to start with Luke. I like Hartford. I went to school there, but you cannot believe it's safer to not cooperate with federal immigration officials.
Look, first of all, let's start with the fact that Donald Trump lies about what sanctuary cities are and what's happening in them. And he lies because playing to people's fears and prejudices
How did he lie?
Dividing us along race lines is how he got elected.
Well, how did he lie?
He lies because he creates this perception that there is some crime wave that's driven by undocumented immigrants, and it's just not true.
Well, sanctuary cities are a little more dangerous than non-sanctuary cities.
Actually,
according to a study in California.
Yeah, that's just not the case.
Well, I mean, I have the study right here.
Across the country,
I have the study right here.
I've seen crimes
University of
decline
Irvine.
Year after year. We're sitting in the largest sanctuary city in the country, which is at historic lows right now when it comes to...
Wow, Hartford. Largest sanctuary city in the country. Oh, that's great.
Well, Well, I mean, your city, Hartford.
Oh, no.
I mean, crime's going up there. Under your tutelage,
Actually,
by the way.
Violent crime as a whole has been going down.
Murder and rape
we have
are up.
high murders that are consistent with trends for a long time. But I would love to have a conversation with you and with the president, if he's watching, about...
Isn't that nice double talk? Hartford. Does he feel more like a snake oil salesman? A snake? Or Abraham Lincoln? You want to know what the solution is? The solution is to vote for the Abraham Lincolns that are coming forward in the races. And that means all new people. Leaders are supposed to be self-sacrificing. When I was a teacher, there was another veteran teacher, and she put it better than anything I've ever heard. And it just struck me. She said, we don't elect a president who would do it the way we would do it. We elect a president who could lead us, who we believe could actually lead us. Like, we don't want them to do it our way. We just want somebody we trust to lead us. Like, to actually, we trust them to make the right decisions and lead us. Like, to go forward. She's like, none of us are made to be president. We're not good at being president. Like, I don't want someone who's going to make my decisions. I want someone who I think is going to make the right decisions for us. I want to find someone who will be able, who has the capacity to look at all the angles, make the analysis, and then go forward. She's like, our job is supposed to elect a leader who can see all the angles and then go. She's like, I don't know when this country got to the point where we just want to elect someone like us. She's like, if we did that, this country would go to crap because nobody's like us. We want to elect someone who could like see everything and then make the best decision going forward. Leadership requires sacrifice. Like, you're not supposed to be, hiring the next preacher. Who like smells good, and just put it this way. If they look good with like little mariachis in their hand, done. It's over. What next? That is not the one. If they be like, what the hell? Boom, that's your guy. That is like the best thing. If you can see them being like, and that's like every freaking DNC person. I'm sorry, the DFC has gone full communist. You're done. And you know why they've gone full communist? Look at Venezuela. I'll give you the link right here. Venezuela, when it goes socialist, the rich at the very top make a kick-ass money. They can make a ton of money. Oh, all right. I've worn out. But my point is that you guys have to not just vote on the GOP side. No matter if you're liberal or not, if you're a liberal and you haven't been to my channel, most of my friends are liberals. God, I love my friends. I'm an independent. But all of us know at this point that it really is like communist versus democracy. And we all know, we've seen enough research by now. I mean, Bernie Sanders going after and saying, oh, the 1%, the one where you have to elect me for the, to get rid of the 1%, all the while knowing this whole time that Wall Street runs DNC, Bloomberg runs DNC, Forbes runs DNC, Facebook runs DNC. He knew it. He knew that the DNC was the 1%. If he was really against the 1%, he would have run for the other party. He knew that. So you have to go to the other side, because at least the other side hasn't gone full tilt, but we can't vote for the same people. Because that's where the people who somebody said it, commentator was like, I never thought this president would be more conservative than Ronald Reagan. And Ronald Reagan was elected by nearly all 50 states. Like, it's hard. I know it's hard for people to see through it. But, like, imagine him with a bag over his head and just look at what he's doing. Like, look at the policies he's doing. Like, what is he actually doing? Like, when it comes to abortion, like, he's not like, oh, abortion's so wrong. But he's like, look, the taxpayers, like, it's the Supreme Court. I need to look into it more. But I know that until he started talking about it, I didn't know. I found out that the Supreme Court ruled that every woman has the right. That's not going to change. The Supreme Court, the woman has the right to go anywhere. Did you know Planned Parenthood only does 30% of all abortions? That's it. Women have abortions. They have the freedom to go wherever. But Planned Parenthood is paid for by taxpayers. And it's just like, but wait a minute. Like, well, why do white men who don't fund our migraines, who don't fund my back, who don't fund, why are we as taxpayers, just like sanctuary cities, why are we as taxpayers not funding everybody else's hair care, but we're all funding a woman's ovaries and nothing else? Like, we'll only fund her ovaries. We won't fund anything. Like, I've been, you know, like, I've worked alongside, like, I have. So, like, but I never thought about it before that, oh, like, well, yeah, the Supreme Court, they asked the Supreme Court to be like, and they have the right to be funded. And the Supreme Court refused. Roe v. Wade refused to say, and they get funding. But the men in Congress gave it anyway. That's selfish. That's just to keep their hands clean. Because the woman, you know, I'm like, that's terrible. And then they stack it in the minority neighborhoods and keep the population down. It's used as population control in Japan. And I'm like, no, like, you know, that falls in line with Agenda 21. And I'm just like, but for me, and I'm like, it's law, I stand by it. Whether I'm for or against abortion, that's out of it. The Supreme Court spoke. But for me, I'm just kind of like, I'm freaking sick. I'm really, really sick. I have a lot of doctor's bills. I have been so sick for 8 years, and I would love it. I would love it. Why do they get everything paid for? They're like, why? Why? Like, why? Like, just because I'm not able. I don't understand it. Like, they're free. I'm like, you're free. No one's stopping you. And they just lie about that debate, you know? So they're going to lie about a lot of things out there. So when you vote, just vote for someone who's saying, you know, for democracy. Vote for your mayor, for your town council, who's like against Agenda 21, who's against Sanctuary City, who's for democracy. And if they say they're pro-POTUS or whatever, who the F cares? Like, wherever you feel about POTUS, the bottom line is that it's not the old GOP. It's not what you hate. Like, they're the capitalists. You know, that's not what the president ran on, was capitalism. You know, he ran on freedom of speech, you know, and freedom for all. And quite frankly, I don't know if you know this. I don't know who's watching this, but conservatives are going to jail. And the GOP allowed that to happen. Students are getting locked up. The IRS is going through their bank accounts with no reasonable cause. Like, just like if you do a documentary on the DNC, anyone in the DNC, they flag you and they put a flag on your accounts. That's communism. That's communist China. Like, we need new people. But when it comes to your town and a sanctuary city, I am telling you, all of those cities, like, let me find them again, I'm sorry. All right, you want a map of sanctuary cities in America? You tell me this isn't a drug cartel. Does that happen to link up with the epidemic? Look at that. Those are all the sanctuary cities. America. What city isn't? In all of those cities, and that's not including the states, in all of those cities, notice all of those are the ones with the worst rates of addiction. And the worst rates of sex trafficking. I don't know if you guys know about sex trafficking. I'll have to do something different on sex trafficking. But sex trafficking is where you just snatch girls off the street or you bring them up from South America and you just hang out in hotels. Some of our favorite hotels when we were leaving, they just rent a room for a while and then they just put it out on Craigslist. And then guys would just drop on by. And they can't. It's not the war on drugs. Why would they care about your funds being cut off when they're getting so much money? Man, let me tell you, if you don't already know, like your DNC party got caught. You're like gun advocate. You're big gun advocate in California. I've learned with the DNC, if they say, if a member says, I really hate this, it means they're doing it. I've learned that. For sure. There's no crime rate. There's no crime rate. Just like that mayor just said, oh, there's no crime. There's no crime. Well, actually, it turns out your city's gone up in crime. There's no crime. Oh, it turns out that nope. Every time. Go to Open Society, you watch the Project Veritas. Go to Open Society, you watch that. They say, do you work here? Absolutely not. They could just say, usually you go someplace they don't want to answer, they don't say anything. Go to Open Society, they say Open Society, they operate like a secret society. They just head down, all 50 employees said no. Like, said the word no. Didn't say yes, didn't say nothing, didn't say, I don't know what you're talking about. They all said no. Do you work for Open Society? No. Just always the exact opposite of the truth. That just is what comes naturally. So this guy, this big gun rights activist, not gun rights, but against gun safety and then schools, but nope, gun running. Caught for gun running. In your state, California, caught for gun running and trafficking drugs. What is my point? I mean, even Hollywood's bought. They changed G.I. Joe. It's not American Hero anymore. Look at the poster. It has a big black figure in the back, big black helmet with a red Chinese-looking symbol on the front. And it's not American Hero anymore because China funded it. Paid him to take it out. With communist values. They're just whores for money. Anything for money. Hollywood, Wall Street, the media. Don't you remember the media? When they kind of started slipping in articles that were paid articles. And they're like, and they did stories on it, how, oh, we're going to start doing paid articles and paid articles. Did they ever tell you when they all became paid articles? Did they tell you when that happened? Did you see the glowing article the New York Times did about China? What a wondrous country it was. that we could really learn from. You know, the place that still has labor camps. Locks up people who practice like Tai Chi, Fulon. Gone and harvest their organs for money. Yeah, we could learn a lot from them. Maybe we already are. But we'll never hear about it. Just like we never heard about sanctuary cities. But we should have guessed. Because sanctuary, when the DNC says it, and the left says it, and the media says it, we should know by now it means the opposite. Sanctuary cities. The scariest, most unsafe, terrifying cartel haven. Of them all. The good news is, as I've always been saying, move. Agenda 21 is making megacities. Maybe they're just laying the groundwork for the metacities. They'll have all the mafia things set up for the megacities when they come. Isn't it interesting that they have all these sanctuary cities where no one can get caught and no one can get deported? Which means they can't raid their houses or get their guns. They're a totally protected class. But people who have legal guns, those guns have to go. You know, China's citizens can't have guns, right? First thing to go in a communist country and a socialist country is the guns. Except for the people with power. They always have guns. And that's what sanctuary cities are. The non-citizens have all the power. There is absolutely no deterrent to shooting you in the head. None whatsoever. Not even a little bit. What can you do about it? You get to your primaries. You see this link right here. And I talk about all 50 states. If I don't have enough links yet, go on down below. And you vote in. You vote in a new Republican candidate. In your mayor, Tiberius. No. He's eating the tree. Sorry, that's my cat. Sorry. The life of having a cat. Alright, I'm sorry if I startled you. He just ends up yakking and throwing up, and it's this whole thing, and is really awful, and then you don't need to hear about it. I don't even know where I was. You need to vote in, like, mayor, city council members, governor, especially governor, and you need to vote in, like, people that will appoint new police chiefs, like, not police chiefs, but police chiefs. You need new police chiefs. You need to be grilling, and if you don't know who it is, go and meet them. I am telling you, you are under siege. If you want your opioid epidemic, if you want it over with, I'm sorry, but this is it. This is how you get it done. This is how you want the sex trade done and everything like that. You know, the media is always going on and on about sending troops to the border and why did POTUS send troops to the border. Yeah, that's the main route. All the traffic's coming up. They're feeding into. And where do you think they're going? Where do you think that main highway's going up? Where do you think they're pouring into? They have little safe havens everywhere. Little criminal camps. Every criminal organization in the world is camped out in your city and cannot be deported. That's what sanctuary city means. No matter what Mr. Grin says. That's what it means. I hate to break it to you, but that's what it means. And this was a really scary video to do because MS-13 is scary as MF. But it's not going to get less. It's not going to get less. Why do you think? Why? It just dawned on me. Why do you think Congress did not stand up for anything POTUS said? And we were like, what the heck? Not even for black unemployment. Not one thing. And the only thing they talked about was like, what about the non-citizens? What about the non-citizens? And I just realized that is their greatest source of money. Everyone's like, oh, they're backing themselves. They only have one small group left. And I just realized, like, that small group has more money than God. That small group is every criminal organization on the planet. Like, they just finally figured out who had all the money. Those Alinsky brothers are good. And when you watch that video, you'll watch them use every single trick. They will use the poor victim. How dare you? How could you? How could you? How could you bring that in? How could you bring that in? Didn't deny actually owning it. Didn't deny, like, any of the actual facts. Just both of them, full-on victim, both doing the left thing of pointing and being like, you, and insults you. Just none of the, like, every single tactic. And then, like, oh, yeah, like, we have nothing to do with Hillary, but you should read everything she's done. Oh, no, we had nothing to do with it, except that he's the most amazing thing. Oh, my God, like, I've got to do a body language on it. So anyway, I have gone on for this is literally the longest video I've ever done, so I guess that means it really needed to be done. It's like a mini documentary of my face. I hope to, I pray it saves, like, at least one life, one city. Like, please vote, please get out to your primaries, like, please get in. You can't just vote GOP, you have got to vote in all categories, even the judges. God, Soros is so funding the judges. Did you see that LA Times? That LA Times is doing good reporting. By the LA Times and the Chicago Times are doing really good reporting, which is why the EU actually made all those privacy laws to kick them out of Europe. They were doing such a good job reporting that they actually cracked down. Notice that Google and Facebook, that's a whole other subject. Okay. All right. I need to go before I keep, going and just giving you more and more information. I need to go and, like, do one of those tours and just get out there because, like, I need to go out there and, like, do a tour and just start talking to you guys because I feel like I never get enough out. So I'm like, oh, I want to tell you guys so much. I need to write a book. I need to start writing again. I'm getting there. Please share this with your friends. Please share this with your friends. Please tell people what a sanctuary city and a sanctuary state actually means. Why do you think everyone's leaving California? You think they're doing that because they hate the state? Why do you think California suddenly is 50th in the nation? The utopia, the land of milk and honey, suddenly hit 50th in the entire state in living conditions, in pollution and safety and crime, in all areas of quality of living. It's 50th. Does that sound like Mexico to you, like a third world country? Or does it just sound like a DNC state? Oh, that's right, they're the same. All right, I love you guys. Peace out. Thanks. And if you can, donate to the server fund to protect research that provided you with videos like this. Thanks, guys. Bye. And vote in your primaries. Vote, 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 vote. 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 It'll feel good. And don't vote by, that's right, do not vote by absentee ballot. Do not. Do not. Voter fraud is like at an all-time high, 3.5 million false votes. You have got to vote in person. Got to vote in person. That way you find out if someone already voted for you. You can correct it. Make sure it's your vote is your own. Gotta vote in person. All right. There you go. Glad I said it. Mwah. Au revoir. Are we done, Tazzy?